Okay guys, well, as you would have seen, we have successfully completed our Moab trip with our motorcycles. Now, they held up really well, but it was a rough terrain out there, and we definitely had some incidents. Dropped at one time, and that was enough to do a little bit of damage. So what I wanted to do was go through the bike and show you guys the damage that this thing sustained from going out there to Moab, and just kind of show you how these bikes hold out, you know, when put to the test off-road. A lot of people think that, you know, these scramblers are really street-oriented motorcycles. More so, you know, the regular scrambler, but these desert sleds do really well off-road actually. So in addition to that, we're also going to go ahead and clean it up and see how well that ceramic coating and that clear bra work. So let's go ahead and get this thing unloaded and check it out. All right, guys. Well, here it is after our Moab trip. I want to say we probably put around 80 to 100 miles on this thing during this trip. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but a lot of these trails are very technical. Tons of river crossings and rock gardens, some rock crawling in areas, just tons of mud because it had rained out there as well too. You can see it's really flung up on the bike in places. So it's definitely very dirty right now, as you can see, but everything has held up really well as far as I can tell. You know, nothing's rattling itself apart. I had no hardware fallout. Nothing came off, nothing broke other than what I'm about to show you, which was my fault because I got in an accident. But you can actually kind of see, I think the ceramic coating looks to be you know, doing a little bit of work on that mud. It looks like it kind of ran before it finally sat in place and dried, and that should wash right off. You can see we've got a bunch of nice Moab dirt here back on the swing arm and the license plate. Brakes still work great. This new Rage Cycles tail tidy delete did really well. Nothing came out of that. Everything's still in place and it works great as well. So I'm really happy with that kit. Now, it's time to talk about the damage that we sustained. So I'll throw in a clip here of what happened, but essentially I was going doing a downhill left-hander, and a lot of what's out there is sand, of course, and really soft, loose dirt. And on that first day of riding, you know, we were kind of scrambling to get out on the trail, trying to hurry and make the most of our time there. So we didn't air down our tires or anything at all, which is really important for off-road. Once it flattens that tire out, you know, think of it kind of like a stiff kind of round shape, and then when you start to lower the PSI, you know, it kind of starts to flatten out, and that gives more contact patch. So we didn't do that, and just that in combination of kind of having fun, playing around in the corners, you know, doing an off-camber, downhill left-hander, it just leaned that front end and it totally washed out and fell, and I fell pretty hard. Oh. And you can see some of the damage here because of that. You can see some scraping going on here. Now, it looks to be mostly the clear bra here, and I think some of that should possibly kind of polish out of that, since this is a bit self-healing, but some of it is gouged just a little bit, and you can see it's kind of under there, but I think the paint's going to be pretty well protected. Of course, it has ceramic coating on top of it too, which, you know, not really crash resistant, somewhat abrasion resistant, so it probably helps that sand kind of glide across the surface a bit too, I would imagine. Fork still works great and everything. Headlight works great. Now, I thought I had broken the glass at one point because there was, you know, a couple of like shiny pieces on the ground when I got up and turned around. and I thought the glass had shattered out of here. But what it turns out is there's these little tabs here that kind of pop in, and that is just like a little trim piece that would pop back in there. And we popped one of them back in, and I have the other one in the truck. You can see on this side, it's missing right there, but I've got that, and we'll pop that back into place, and that will be no problem. Now, the bigger issue over here is that this is cracked. There's nothing there. And right there is where the turn signal is, unfortunately. So, here's my other turn signal. Now, you think, oh, that broke off, that's probably some cheap plastic there, but it's really not. It's very thick. It almost feels like cast aluminum. So it's really thick, but that crash was just kind of hard on it. So while the actual turn signal itself didn't break, what did break was the little housing here, just on the corner of it. And that goes right about like that. So, I could probably repair that with some clear epoxy or something and make that work, which I might do for the time being, but I'll order a new bezel here. It's just a little plastic surround bezel here that covers some of the wiring and the ignition there. They even sell a carbon version of that I might look at. So that's unfortunate. Now, probably the most unfortunate thing to me is the fact that we actually have cracked our brand new fender. Well, of course it's brand new because it's a new bike, but it's a little saddening. It's gonna be hard to see, but up here there's a little crack. And now the other two guys, they didn't even notice this was on there, but I was taking a close look at it, and you can actually see back here that it's cracked. Now, that's not the end of the world. This isn't structural or anything, but it is nice to have, and it does look good, of course, which is the most important part of a motorcycle. So I'm thinking some clear epoxy on that as well too. It might do the trick. It's in a very unnoticeable spot. Probably get a new fender eventually, but we're trying to rock this one as is. Yeah, and the thing about this fender is that I believe it's like some kind of either like fiberglass or plastic of a sort. It's not, like a polyurethane kind of front fender like dirt bikes would have where they just fold in. You can see it hit really hard here, and it just, probably broke at the weak point there and sheared it, but still very usable. You can start to see why Ducati uses Loctite on everything, especially for this off-road variant. I thought it was kind of crazy at first, but it starts to make sense the more that I, ride this thing and see other bikes fall apart like the Chinese motorcycle Taylor was riding. They just don't use that Loctite. Oil cooler held up well here. EvoTech did its job there. Kept any rocks from damaging any fins and stuff. Now, the other big one that almost stranded me on the trail for the day is actually this guy right here. And this is gonna be really hard to convey here on camera too, but you can see down here we only have a couple threads, if we can get this to focus on the GoPro today. And up here, there's quite a bit more threads showing. Now, this rod actually snapped and had fully become disconnected, so this wasn't even linked anymore. And that was pretty concerning, but the nice thing is they make this threaded portion so long that we were able to wind this down, pull out more thread, and still connect it to this end. And you'll see in the video that Taylor and I spent some time trying to get the shifter to work again, because this had actually bent up as well too, which is, that's a weak point on this bike. It'd be probably nice to have like the folding peg type. That might have helped save this, and I might look into that in the future. We had the brake lever do the same thing when I fell a while back. I never showed that on camera, but I was just playing around in a field and leaned it over in some snow, and it bent the brake lever. Same happened to this shift lever. Now these are very strong, but they can't hold up against the weight of this entire bike falling on it. So we managed to make that work, even though this threaded rod was actually bent as well too. We still got it and it ships fine. And funny enough, I think it finds neutral easier now. So maybe that's an improvement. But what I'll do is I'll buy an extra one of those, or I'll buy a replacement, throw it in there, and then I'll probably keep this set up in a bag somewhere just as a backup measure in case, you know, we go on a trip again and it fails. Now, wheels, they held up great. I'm looking for any kind of scratches or anything, and I'm not seeing any. I'm on the GoPro today, so I can't like tap to focus on anything in particular, but I'm not seeing any scratches. I'm not seeing any kind of damage at all. The tires, they look great. You know, there's no punctures anywhere or anything, any kind of gouging. So these Pirelli Scorpion Streets, the STRs, they did really well. So I'm happy about that. Now, our engine crash bar did take a brunt of the damage when I fell on it. You can see it's pretty scraped up right here and here as well, but you know, these things are structural. They didn't loosen up, they didn't fold or anything. Nothing's broken. The bike works just fine as is. So I'm really happy with the way that those did their job. You can see, I think, you know, these fell in the dirt a little bit. They didn't get so banged up like this one did, but you know, it's nice to have this here as well too. I'm sure those would have done a pretty decent job. So, and then up here, I've got some scraping on the brake master cylinder. So that's a little unfortunate, but you know, I might be able to do some touch-up paint there. It's totally functional. Same here, you can see. We're all kind of amazed that this didn't actually break, because usually these are the first things to break when you drop a bike. The levers just hit and just fold or snap. So we were all pretty happy about that. That would have been game over there. So that held up well. And this got a little gouge taken out of it. Nothing that can't be replaced pretty easily, you know. Just pull that end off and put a new one on. The grips are a dime a dozen. So really it's, you know, a couple small cosmetic things. There's also a little bug chilling here. Oh, he flew away, okay. The jokes of Italian reliability and, you know, engineering are definitely there and probably well warranted in the past, but modern bikes are so well built. You know, Ducati's part of the Volkswagen Audi group now, so probably held to a bit higher of a standard when it comes to machining things. You know, it's like Lamborghini has gotten better because of their relationship, and this bike is no exception here. So you can see, we'll start it up and everything just works fine, no issue. Go ahead and pop this thing into neutral. Starts right up. Electronics have no issue. I've got the off-road setting on. But you can see we can cycle through and everything still works. Turn signal even works for being broken off here. Still works totally fine. Hazards work. LED light ring still works, headlight still works, rode it at night. But it just runs fine, you know. It's an easy motor, it's air cooled. The most complicated thing about it is that it's desmodromic valves, which, you know, are a Ducati specialty and require a little bit more maintenance, but it's not awful. So. But there we have it. So guys, the bike held up really well. Couldn't be happier with it. You know, we've got a few things to fix, but nothing pressing really except the turn signal. I'm gonna probably fix that today for the time being and then get a new part. But just wanted to show you guys how this thing held up and that we're still having fun with it. Probably gonna go to Ducati and try and show you the service section of these bikes. You know, I'm gonna show what it's like to own this thing and have it maintenance by Ducati. You know, there's like oil lights that you can't reset yourself unless you buy a special programmer and such, but I'm just gonna have them do it for this first service at least. And then we'll work with them to find some parts and show you how the parts ordering process is and how it is for these bikes. And yeah. But yeah, that ceramic coating really does its job. So I'll just kind of washes right off, just falls right off the paint. As you can see here, that clear bra was really torn up. So I decided to cut it back and see what the paint looked like underneath. Really good, just 2 small gouges, which is unfortunate. Now for the turn signal, that was broken off from the housing there. So I decided to use some Gorilla Glue clear epoxy, and it is super strong and held in place very well. For the fender, that crack is actually pretty substantial. It goes all the way from the edge almost to other side there. So I just used that same epoxy, held it with tape, and let it bond for a while. And the bike is back to normal. I want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Make sure and like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. All right.